here, I say there are no such things as flying saucers.
Has your voice always been that gravelly?
Yes.
Even when you were a child?
Yes.
Gosh.
Yes.
Sort of strange child.
I mean, I don't know what to say about it. I have a deep voice.
Is it a smoker's voice? Or was it a smoker's voice?
No, not at all.
It's 2003. B. Arthur stands on stage in London, 81 years old, commanding every inch of space with that deep voice and razor-sharp wit. The audience adores her, but backstage, producers recall something chilling. When asked about her Golden Girls co-star Betty White, within 30 seconds, the most vulgar word in the English language would come out. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's rewind. It's 1934. Franklin D. Roosevelt is steering America through the Great Depression. A loaf of bread costs 8 cents, families gather around radios, and Jewish immigrants are building new lives in small towns. Prejudice runs deep. In Cambridge, Maryland, an 11-year-old girl named Bernice Frankel is learning a brutal lesson about not fitting in. She's already 5 feet 9 inches tall. At age 12, she'll be the tallest girl in her school. She has a voice that sounds like a grown man. Her parents are Jewish immigrants from Poland and Austria who run a clothing shop in a town where being Jewish makes you an outsider. Young Bernice felt like a misfit, painfully shy, facing anti-Semitic rejection at school every single day. When most people think of B. Arthur today, they picture sharp-tongued Dorothy Zbornak on The Golden Girls or feminist Maude Findlay. But here's what might shock you. Behind the woman who seemed fearlessly confrontational was someone who spent her childhood being told she was too tall, too loud, too Jewish, too different. Those wounds never healed. They just turned into armor. Think you know the real B. Arthur? Stick around because we've got revelations that will completely change how you see this Hollywood icon, including humanitarian work that proved she had one of the biggest hearts in show business. Surprising truth number 1. The feud that ended the Golden Girls. For 7 years, millions watched 4 women share cheesecake and friendship. The chemistry was magical. Dorothy and Rose, played by B. Arthur and Betty White, felt like genuine best friends. But when cameras stopped rolling, something different was happening. Co-producer Marsha Posner Williams revealed that when that red light was on during filming, there were no more professional people than those women. But when the red light went off, those two couldn't warm up to each other if they were cremated together. B would call Williams at home saying she'd just run into that offensive term for Betty at the grocery store. Dinner at B's house? Within 30 seconds, the same word would come out. Even on airplanes sitting next to Betty, B would use that language. Here's what made it painful. Script supervisor Isabel O'Maro noted there was a time when Betty and B were friends. They lived near each other, carpooled to work, lunched together daily. Rue McClanahan said B wouldn't go to lunch unless Betty came. Something changed, and it changed hard. Some say it started when Betty won the Emmy in 1986. According to Rue's memoir, B was furious. B came from Broadway, serious theater, and reportedly felt she was more of an actress than Betty, who came up through game shows. B's son, Matthew Sachs, offers the most honest assessment. He admitted his mom unknowingly carried the attitude that it was fun to have somebody to be angry at. Betty became her nemesis, the person she could roll her eyes about. The breaking point came from different working styles. Betty would break character and chat with the live audience, making jokes about being old. The audience loved it. But B, trying to stay in character and concentrate, hated it. To her, it wasn't professional. The feud allegedly ended the show. When contracts came up after 7 years, Estelle Getty said yes. Rue said yes. Betty said yes. According to Williams, B said no way in hell. But here's the nuance. When B died in 2009, Betty's response was heartbroken. She told Larry King, "I knew it would hurt. I just didn't know it would hurt this much." Multiple co-stars remembered B as incredibly generous to fellow performers, someone who would give credit to other actors. So was B mean? Or was she someone who never learned to handle discomfort without creating an enemy? To understand that, go back to that tall, awkward Jewish girl in Maryland who learned the world wasn't going to make space for her. Surprising truth number 2. The misfit who became a Marine. February 1943. World War II is raging. In Cambridge, Maryland, 20-year-old Bernice Frankel is working as a hospital lab technician, barely making enough to support herself. Then she hears the call. Be a Marine. Free a man to fight. Just 5 days after the Marine Corps began recruiting women, Bernice volunteered. She became one of the first members of the Marine Corps Women's Reserve, enlisting February 18, 1943. Because she was under 21, she needed written consent from her parents. The personality appraisal reads exactly like Dorothy Zbornak. One officer described her as well-poised with military bearing and meticulous good taste, but also overly aggressive and argumentative, frank and open. The final assessment? Officious, but probably a good worker if she has her own way. That assessment from 1943 predicted the woman who'd spend 30 years playing strong-willed characters. After basic training, Bernice was assigned as a typist at Marine headquarters in Washington, but she didn't want to type. She wanted to drive trucks. In June 1943, she requested transfer to motor transport school at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Think about how unusual this was. Young women from New York City had probably never driven before, but not Bernice. She asked for one of the most physically demanding roles available. For 2 years, she worked as truck driver and dispatcher at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. She rose through the ranks, private to corporal to sergeant. By her honorable discharge in September 1945, she was staff sergeant. In 1944, she married fellow Marine Robert Allen Orther. She changed her name to Bernice Orther, later adjusting it to B. Arthur for her acting career. Here's what's fascinating. For the rest of her life, when asked about military service, B denied it. In 2001, she said she never served. Her official file became public in 2010, a year after she died. Why deny serving your country with an honorable discharge at Staff Sergeant? The denial tells you something important. She fiercely guarded her privacy, wanted control over her narrative, didn't feel the need to explain herself to anyone. This wasn't someone who played by anyone's rules. But first, she'd have to claw her way into an industry that didn't want women who looked like her. Surprising truth number 3. Rejected for not being the right kind of woman. After her 1945 discharge, B tried medical lab work again, but the money wasn't enough. In 1947, she moved to New York City to become someone else, as she later put it. She enrolled at the New School, studying under legendary director Erwin Piscator, alongside Harry Belafonte, Walter Matthau, Rod Steiger, and Tony Curtis. Piscator loved her height and deep voice. He cast her in classical plays like The Taming of the Shrew. But here's the crushing truth. She couldn't find professional work. In the 1940s and 1950s, Hollywood wanted one thing. Small, blonde, pretty, feminine B was 5 feet 9.5 inches with a baritone voice. Years later, she said, "All this time I've just wanted to be blonde, beautiful, and 5 feet 2 inches tall." Her dream was to become a very small blonde movie star like Ida Lupino. Instead, she sang in nightclubs for $2 a night, took bit parts, scraped by. For years, nobody knew what to do with her. In 1954, she landed Lucy Brown in the off-Broadway Threepenny Opera. Critics praised her skillfully devastating satire. In 1964, she created Yente the Matchmaker in Fiddler on the Roof, stealing the show nightly. In 1966, she won the Tony Award for Vera Charles in Mame, opposite Angela Lansbury, who became a lifelong friend. But television executives still didn't want her. When Norman Lear convinced her to guest on All in the Family in 1971 as Maude Findlay, the response was overwhelming. CBS created the spin-off Maude, running 1972 to 1978, tackling abortion, alcoholism, women's liberation. B won an Emmy in 1977. When NBC cast The Golden Girls in 1985, network head Brandon Tartikoff didn't want B. Her Q scores in likability were too low. She wasn't warm enough. Creator Susan Harris refused anyone else. She was dead set on B. B's Dorothy Zbornak became one of television's most iconic characters. She won another Emmy in 1988. Imagine spending your career being told you're not quite right, only succeeding because a few people fought against gatekeepers who thought you were too different. That rejection builds walls that never come down. Surprising truth number 4. The Tony Award that almost didn't happen. In 1966, B landed the role of Vera Charles in the Broadway musical Mame, opposite Angela Lansbury in the title role. The show was directed by her husband Gene Saks. It was a smash hit, running for 1,508 performances. B's portrayal of the acid-tongued, martini-swilling best friend was scene-stealing perfection. On Tony Night, she won Best Featured Actress in a musical. Lansbury won Best Actress. Even 11-year-old Frankie Michaels won for playing young Patrick, making him the youngest Tony winner in history. But here's what makes this extraordinary. Lansbury and Arthur became genuine lifelong friends from that show. When B died in 2009, Angela said, "She became and has remained my bosom buddy. I am deeply saddened by her passing." This was friendship on B's terms. Deep, loyal, lasting. When she let someone in, she was all in. Surprising truth number 5. Television's most controversial episode. In November 1972, 2 months before Roe vs. Wade, B. Arthur made television history. In a 2-part Maude episode called Maude's Dilemma, her 47-year-old character discovered she was pregnant and chose to have an abortion. This was the first time a primetime lead character on network television decided to terminate a pregnancy. At the time, abortion was legal in New York, where the show was set, but illegal in many states. CBS was terrified. They asked Norman Lear to delay the episode. Lear refused, telling the network if these episodes didn't air, he wouldn't provide anything in their place. CBS blinked. When the episodes aired on November 14th and 21st, 1972, dozens of affiliates refused to broadcast them. Sponsors pulled their ads. CBS aired the show without sponsorship. But here's the kicker. An estimated 65 million viewers watched either the first run or the summer reruns. The episode sparked 7,000 letters of protest. They also sparked national conversation about reproductive rights. The show didn't preach. It showed Maude's ambivalence, her struggle, her ultimate decision based on what was right for her life. It was groundbreaking, brave, and it cemented B. Arthur as someone willing to use her platform for important causes. Surprising truth number 6. The humanitarian nobody knew about. If you have memories of B. Arthur or the Golden Girls, please hit subscribe and tell us about it in the comments. In the early 2000s, a friend told B about LGBTQ teenagers being kicked out of their homes. These kids had nowhere to go. Something shifted in B. She became one of the main financial backers of a New York shelter for these young people. But she didn't just write checks. She showed up unannounced with groceries, scarves she'd knitted, or just her time. Staff recall her sitting for hours with kids, swapping jokes, or simply listening. In 2005, already diagnosed with cancer, she performed her one-woman show. She raised $40,000 that night for the Ali Forney Center. When B died in 2009, her will revealed she'd left $300,000 to the shelter. The organization renamed itself the B. Arthur Residence for Homeless LGBTQ Youth. The girl from Cambridge who faced anti-Semitic rejection never forgot what it felt like. She made sure other outsiders had a chance. Surprising truth number 7. The private life. She guarded fiercely. Despite playing outspoken characters, B was intensely private. Her son Matthew Sachs said, "My mom wasn't really close to anybody. She just liked to go home and read the paper." In 1950, she married director Gene Sachs. They adopted 2 sons and remained married over 20 years. Her home life was quiet, a contrast to her fiery characters. After the marriage ended, she never remarried. She had quirks, hated birds, especially chickens, despised chewing gum. Her Golden Girls contract let her walk barefoot on set because she hated shoes. Colleagues noted when cameras rolled, she was consummate professional. Adrienne Barbeau said no one could deliver a line like B, and no one was more generous, suggesting other actors should get funny lines. Off camera, she could be difficult. On camera, she was generous and brilliant. Surprising truth number 8. The health struggles. She never showed. At age 16, B developed coagulopathy, a condition where her blood wouldn't clot. Her parents sent her to boarding school for better medical monitoring. The condition required lifelong management. In later years, she developed lung disease. When she performed her one-woman show in 2005, already diagnosed with cancer, she didn't tell audiences she was sick, she just performed. The woman who seemed so physically imposing was slowly betrayed by her body, but she remained private about struggles until the end. Surprising truth number 9. The legacy she left behind. B. Arthur paved the way for every woman in comedy who doesn't fit the conventional mold. She proved you could be tall, deep-voiced, sarcastic, unglamorous, and still be a star. She tackled subjects nobody else would touch. She played characters who didn't need men to complete them. She embodied feminism that said women could be complicated, difficult, and brilliant all at once. Future comedians like Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Leah Remini cited Bea as their childhood heroine. On April 25, 2009, Bea died at home at age 86. Broadway dimmed its lights. Only 2 actresses have more Emmy nominations for comedy: Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Mary Tyler Moore. She left instructions wanting laughter, not tears. Mourners reportedly cried and laughed simultaneously, perfect for someone who'd balanced comedy and pain her entire career. Surprising truth number 10. What we get wrong about difficult women. Here's the truth. When we call Bea Arthur mean, we're punishing her for not performing warmth, for not being likable enough, for having boundaries and refusing to soften herself. Betty White was beloved because she performed endless warmth. That was her gift. But Bea chose privacy, boundaries, and honesty even when it made people uncomfortable. Was it fair she targeted Betty with harsh language? No. Was she a monster? Also no. She grew up rejected for being different, fought into an industry that didn't want her, gave generously when cameras rolled, and quietly used her wealth to save homeless LGBTQ youth. She was complicated. She had sharp edges. She didn't always handle frustrations well. She was also capable of profound generosity and fierce loyalty. She was human. So which fact shocked you most? That she became a Marine at 20 and rose to staff sergeant? The abortion episode that made television history? The humanitarian work for homeless kids? Quietly knitting scarves for those rejected by families? Learning she and Betty were friends at first? Or understanding the woman everyone thought was mean actually built armor to survive in a world that wouldn't make space for her? Let us know in the comments, because here's the truth about Bea Arthur. She wasn't mean. She was defended. She wasn't cold. She was private. She wasn't difficult. She was uncompromising. Maybe the real story isn't about a feud or personality flaw. Maybe it's about how we treat women who refuse to perform warmth, who refuse to make themselves smaller, who refuse to apologize for taking up space. Bea Arthur spent her life being too much for some people. Too tall, too loud, too opinionated, too Jewish, too difficult. And in the end, that's exactly what made her unforgettable. If we gave you one truth you didn't know, or if you missed this era, hit the subscribe button and drop a comment of your most memorable moments.